There's been a lot of discussion on YouTube lately about starting a channel for those of us that are over 40. Now I know it's hard to believe that I'm actually over 40, but I am. So I thought I would explain how and why I started on YouTube and what I'm hoping to get out of my channel moving forward. So first of all, I have to say that this is not my normal style of content. Usually I record do-it-yourself or how-to style videos, so I apologize to my subscribers for this content, but I thought that this would prove useful to the YouTube community at large. My YouTube journey probably really started back when I was a kid. Back when I got my first Instamatic camera. You remember those skinny little cameras? They actually used 110 film. So I started when I was young taking pictures mostly of things that I was building. You know, model cars, rebuilding bicycles, what I call project photos. That's the kind of pictures that I was taking. Of course, you took pictures of your family and things, places you were going and so on. But for me, it was really taking pictures of projects. That was kind of my focus. Of course, back then, film was expensive and processing even more so. And I had to pay for that all out of my own pocket. So I wasn't taking a lot of pictures. And add to that you oftentimes wouldn't use a whole roll of film. You may take 10 pictures one day and put your camera aside for weeks or months before you actually used up a roll of film. And then you would go to the drugstore and you'd get your film processed and you wouldn't see your pictures for a couple of weeks. Then the prints would come in and you'd have, duds, things out of focus, chopping people's heads off, all the typical mistakes of a young photographer. So I went through a couple of those cameras, those pocket Instamatic cameras. And once I was an adult and had a little bit more disposable income, at some point my wife and I actually purchased a point-and-shoot 35mm camera. But it still had the same issues. You had to decide what film speed you were using and how many frames you wanted to get out of a roll of film. You still had to pay for the film, you had to pay for the processing. And eventually, 1 hour photo became a thing, so the cost eventually did go down. So I was taking a lot of pictures still of my projects. Well, that could have been, like I said, rebuilding something or making something new, or once we got a home, remodeling projects, just trying to document a little bit what I was doing. And sometimes it was just because I was interested in documenting what I was doing, just for my own personal enjoyment. And for rebuilding things, it was more to document the order of disassembly so I could reassemble things. So that was a pretty typical thing. But in the film days, when you were getting prints made, you were actually getting these prints mixed in, right? You're getting pictures of the kids to send back to grandma, pictures of vacations and so on. And then these project photos that I had intermixed in things. And since we were sending pictures of the kids back to grandma, we often would get duplicate prints. So I had all these pictures. And as you can imagine, they were in the envelopes and they would get mixed and matched and everything else. They'd be out of order and so on and so forth. So that was the day of film. Everything was on prints. Well, eventually, that film camera bit the dust, and I needed to replace it. And digital cameras were just becoming kind of the thing, and they seemed to be the go-to thing to replace a point-and-shoot 35mm camera. I can't even remember when that occurred. So we bought our first digital camera, which again was more of a point-and-shoot camera, and we went through the process of trying to figure out how to get prints made. And it was difficult in the early days. Eventually it got easier when they started making inexpensive processing available in drugstores and grocery stores, for example. So that was kind of a nice situation for a while, because then you could be selective about the images you were getting printed. But it was easy. As you were grocery shopping, which is what I would do, I could get prints made. And I could just get those prints like I wanted. And if I wanted duplicates of various images, I could get duplicates or 5x7s or what have you. That was the situation I was in. Back in 2015, my wife and I purchased a truck camper. And before I really got underway with using it for camping, I decided to do some pretty extensive modifications, which at that time, I wasn't really finding a lot of information about how to do certain things. So what I was doing is, I was doing what I'd always had done. I was taking a lot of progress photos, but I really upped it. I really started taking a lot of pictures, really detailed, and I was trying to do overview pictures and then get a little bit more detail and so on and so forth. I was using my digital camera for the most part, but there were cases where the cell phone had the advantage of being able to get into really tight spaces, which was really valuable. So I was using YouTube to learn how to do some of that stuff, but I wasn't really thinking in terms of ever posting content to YouTube per se. But what I was doing at that time was I was posting information on forums. So there was a forum in particular that I was posting to. People would have questions, or I would say, I think this would be useful. So I would put together almost really long posts that had multiple images, and they would have text in there, as much information as I thought I needed to add. But what I was learning is that as new posts were coming in, my posts were going getting older and older, and the questions that were resulting from my posts were getting further fewer between. So about that time, I had actually started my own website, my own personal website. So I had this bright idea that I could take some of that information that I had previously posted, and of course I had all my photos and things, multiple projects, but a couple in particular that I'm thinking about that had to do with my truck camper. And I started creating what I would call articles. And one article in particular was pretty extensive. I was doing this modification, which I wasn't, like I said, I thought would be pretty useful, and it probably could have been a pretty useful article about how to do this modification to my truck camper. Complete with all these pictures and links to resources and other people that had provided information on the internet, other web pages and things. A couple of articles like that. Well, based on the questions and comments that I had gotten both from the forum posts and from my own personal website, I could see that was a lot of work for very little reward. It wasn't getting the viewership that I had hoped for. I had really no good way to advertise the fact that I had these articles. It was just people searching the internet and finding them. It was all based on what Google search results would produce. So as it happened, the digital camera that I had been using for quite a number of years started failing. It started becoming unreliable, and about that time, when I was still using that digital camera, I was kind of finally getting introduced to YouTube as a resource. So I was taking pictures with this digital camera I just described, plus a cell phone, because I was getting more sophisticated myself. So I was getting digital images that I was able to store on my computer. But eventually, this digital camera that I had, bit the dust. So now I needed to replace that camera. And I wanted to step up my game a little bit. So when I got my replacement camera, which is what I'm using now, I really wanted to get to a camera that had interchangeable lenses, which I did. I wanted to learn more about photography, the exposure triangle and so on. But because of YouTube, which I was using as a resource, I was getting the benefit of the people that were putting up content on YouTube. I learned a lot about cameras, and photography, I might add, but in particular, it really helped me select a camera. So I was starting to get a little bit of a taste for what was involved. So I purchased the camera that I have, and then I started experimenting with recording my own videos for my own personal use. Again, I was recording some of the things that I was doing around the property, and one of the uses that I found of the camera that for my own use is in the spring, typically in the spring, but later in the summer as well. I like to record the condition of the trees on our property. So I would go around with my old digital camera or my film camera even, and take individual pictures of the trees just to get a sense for how they matured and what the health of the trees were from year to year. So that was kind of how I got involved in my current digital camera, and I started recognizing the advantage of being able to do video. So with progress photos, when you're taking still images, it's hard to think about like all the perspective that you need to have when you're taking pictures of a project. Like take a tree, for example. I mean, I could have like a detailed picture of a number of trees because I'm trying to record, like sun scald as an example, or I'm trying to record, what the leaves are looking like when they first pop out in the spring, or later in the summer if I have an issue with a tree. I may have yellowing leaves or maybe a disease that's affecting a tree. So I'm recording like close-up detailed pictures. Well, a lot of times those pictures aren't really useful unless you know specifically which tree you're looking at. So you got to really think to stand back and get a whole picture of a tree, for example, and then get closer in, right? So I've learned these things over time, but early on I would have pictures that were like, what am I looking at here? Okay, and when was this picture taken and stuff? And of course, with the digital cameras, you got date stamps and things, which really helps. And of course, you got file names, so you have an order. Or in the old film days, you may have an envelope full of pictures, or maybe several envelopes, and after a while, those pictures all get put in a shoebox, and they get all mixed together. And if you're not careful about like writing on the backs and things, you can completely look at a picture and say, well, I remember doing this thing, but when did we do that? That was a totally common problem back in the day with film. So you had to get photo albums, and you had to be very deliberate about putting pictures in photo albums and all this kind of stuff. So that was one of the drawbacks of the film and print days. But individual still images, you got to be very deliberate about getting different perspectives on a subject if you're doing like progress photos, and then you got to really think about getting around subjects. It's really easy to like miss things, like forgetting to take or not realizing that it would be a good idea. If you're doing a home remodel project and you rip a room down to the studs, as an example, which I've done before I got into videography. You rip stuff down and you're rebuilding everything, and you're concentrating on something that you're doing you want to record, but you don't necessarily think to turn the camera to the left and take a picture, and to take the camera and turn it to the right to take a picture at various stages, or up, So later on, like years later, you're looking through your pictures and you're realizing, like, oh, I really wish I had captured this view or this angle, or stepped back and gotten a different perspective on this thing, or gotten closer, or what have you, So, those are some of the disadvantages of still photos. Well, enter videography, right? So you get your video camera, and now the you can get these different perspectives, kind of not automatically, but it's more natural. Like taking a picture of a tree, you can start from a distance and say, okay, there's this tree and I'm walking toward it. And it takes a matter of seconds. You get up to this tree and maybe now you're looking at a detail. You're looking at the leaves, or you're looking at some issues with the bark or what have you. And you don't lose perspective of what that tree was that you're taking a picture of. And it's all tied together. There's no losing prints, in a shuffling around in a shoebox, right? There's no just generic file names for all the images that you got to figure out what's going on. It's all just naturally tied together because of the nature of videography. And finally, okay, you get to add audio. So like if I'm walking around in my backyard just for my own edification, I can narrate. I can start off by saying what day it is, and I can say, I'm staring at this particular tree, whether it's a catalpa tree, or if it's one of the English oaks, or it's the white oak tree, or whatever tree it is, and then I can walk up to it and I can talk about what I'm recording and why I'm recording the thing I'm recording. It is leafing out, and they look pretty healthy. This tree's got such a weird growth pattern. The leaves always come out further back. So that's kind of how I got started with the whole videography. And then it was just a matter of connecting all the dots and realizing that I'm doing a project, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job of documenting what I'm doing here. You know, if I just put a little more time and energy into it, edit stuff down and together, I have the ability to publish that video up on YouTube. And I think that some of the things that I'm doing are useful. I'm trying to give back to the YouTube community. You know, I know things. I do stuff. I have experience. I'm a wealth of knowledge. So why wouldn't I try to give some of that back? Now, I'm no expert on a lot of these things. And mainly my intent for a lot of things that I'm doing is I'm doing this thing. In some cases, it's not too much more work to actually record what I'm doing, and I'm gonna document what I'm doing anyway. But now to put a little bit more work into it and think about what it would take to put together a video, you know, it's a little more work, but I'm kind of doing the process anyway. And now I'm putting that information on the internet, up on YouTube, because I believe that what I'm doing, I have a unique perspective, or I'm doing things a little bit different, or you know, it's just a little bit different thing that I'm trying to do, solving a different problem or what have you. And perhaps there's somebody out on YouTube that will benefit from what I'm describing. And so far, what I am noticing is that I am in fact getting more views in general on the few things that I've done than I ever got on forum posts or on my websites. So that's why I got started. You know, that's how I got started, and a little bit why, you know, how. You know, I kind of, it was like a natural progression of things to get to the point that I got to. So that's kind of like my journey. You know, that's how I got started. And so, like I said, my channel is predominantly do-it-yourself. Okay. But it's more of a theme. Okay, it's more of a theme, you know, do-it-yourself, how-to kind of stuff. I don't actually claim to have a niche, okay? I am not planning on having a niche. I don't plan on niching down, as everybody says. And the reason for that is that I'm recording what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I don't have any additional home projects that are lined up. You know, I don't have a lifetime of these projects that I'm planning on doing, but I know I'm always going to be busy doing something, right? So I can't claim to be a DIY channel, right? And I'm more of a how-to or why I'm doing kind of a person. You know, this channel is really about me, right? It's really about what I'm doing, whatever that might be. You know, as people say, I am the niche, like I am the niche, right? That's really it. And I realize that sounds kind of stupid, but really that's what I'm doing. So I don't have a plan in my channel to like have a schedule, right? I'm not publishing like every Monday morning, right? I'm not going to have my videos being about this one singular topic over and over and over again. I have no designs on creating a business, like trying to make a living in this channel. Whatever ad revenue I may make from this channel, I'll use to support the channel. You know, and that's kind of my financial incentive, and that's about it. You know, so I just wanted to mention all that. That's, and I thought it would be interesting or useful potentially to talk about YouTube, starting on YouTube from a person that's not a YouTube educator perspective, because that seems to be a lot of what I'm seeing nowadays up on YouTube. You know, it's people that are influencers and educators trying to, you know, help people. I mean, they are, but I thought it'd be useful from maybe a different perspective to talk about all that stuff. So if you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel and you happen to be over 40 like myself, and you're a little nervous because you're not really sure, you know, you're on the fence. Okay, I have some thoughts. You may be nervous because you never talked in front of a camera before, or you're worried about what are people going to think? You know, who's going to watch your videos? You know, family and friends, all that stuff. So a couple thoughts that I have about that. You can record video just for your own personal use. Like, and I would recommend that you experiment and practice. take your device, whatever it happens to be. A cell phone, most people have cell phones these days that have pretty good cameras. Or if you happen to have a camera or an action camera or what have you. If you want to learn how to talk in front of a camera, the best thing you can do is set up a camera when you're by yourself, no distractions, you got time on your hands, and just talk to the camera. You record your own voice and your own picture, your own face. Do that for your own edification. Download those images to your device. I mean, if it's on a cell phone, you have it there already. But if you're using a computer like I am, and then just review what you did. You're not embarrassed. You're just looking at what you did. And if you like to walk around and record other things, then you can do that as well. And you don't have to be in public. I mean, you can do things out, wherever you think is private. It just depends on your personality. Some people are totally comfortable going out and walking around and talking, to a camera when there's people around them and everything else. I'm not that way, right? I'm getting more comfortable doing some of those things, but I tend to be, I record things like my trees, right? I'll go outside and record. I'm talking to the camera. I'm documenting what I'm doing, and I'm learning about lighting and shadows and background noise, dogs barking, planes flying overhead, all those things. You're just experimenting, learn more about whatever device you're using, learn more about the technical aspects. You'll learn more about lighting and audio and tripods, or something to keep your camera stable, but just kind of go through the process. And then at some point, bring your footage into some editing software. And there's lots of software available. But again, you can start really simple by just cutting out the beginnings and ends of clips and putting clips together. If you want to do YouTube, you can either learn how to do thumbnails, and there's all kinds of good tutorials on YouTube about how to do that, or you can just let YouTube pick a thumbnail randomly out of your content, right? So the other thing that's not talked about very often, YouTube provides 2 additional modes. They have three modes. One is to publish, which is what you see when you're watching a video on your homepage or what have you. But there's also private, which means that the video is only available to the person that owns the channel. So that if it's your channel, you're the only person that can view that video. And then there's Unlisted, which is a video that you can share the link to that video with people that you choose to. You don't have to share it with anyone else, and no one that knows about that link will see your videos. I have a couple of videos that I edited together on my channel that are unlisted. For example, one is a family vacation we took with our son and his wife and their kids. And that was kind of fun because that's something I actually put together on my iPad. And the grandkids got a real kick out of me doing it. And I almost completed the entire editing process while we were actually on vacation. And then I put it on Unlisted, and I just shared it with them, my immediate family. So it was viewed like half a handful of times is all. In another video that I did, I had the opportunity to record my mom when she was 95 years old. She suffered through with this for about an hour, and her and my brother and I were reviewing a bunch of really old photos, like of her grandparents and her family, and we were trying to identify people that we didn't know who they were, and her wedding photos and a bunch of other things. And she sat patiently and went through all that with us. And then what I did is I put those clips together and I cut out some things, and then I overlaid the pictures of the people she was identifying. So I kind of put all that together, and I just shared that with my siblings and so on, anybody that was interested. And again, that was viewed over a short period of time by the people I emailed, and that was it. That was the only thing I did. So you have that ability as well. So a couple other thoughts is, when you first get started on YouTube, okay, if you just publish a video up and you don't tell anybody about it, nobody cares. Now, that's kind of one of those two-edged sword kind of things, because you're publishing a video on YouTube, you kind of want people to watch that video. But what you'll realize is, if you're not great on camera and your editing's not great, and whatever you're doing, it's like, you're embarrassed or whatever, like what I'm doing here, you're going to realize that like none of your family and friends are going to know you published that video unless you tell them. You know, the fact of the matter is they're just not going to accidentally trip across your video content. It's just the only family members that I have that know about my channel are people that we were discussing something that they had an interest in, and I said, "Oh, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but you know, I actually have a YouTube channel, and I posted a video about that particular topic, right?" And other than that, it's like, you know, I have one neighbor that was interested, you know, and I can think of 2 relations really that had even a remote interest, you know, in what I'm doing. And it's not like they go back and they watch my videos on a regular basis. You know, they know I have a YouTube channel. They got a real chuckle, you know. I thought the time was right, and it's like, you know, they got a good chuckle, you know, my thing. But you know, if you don't want people to know, they won't know. That's just how it is. But if you have people that you trust or people that you really want to share with, and you want to experiment with these unlisted videos, then, you know, that's a great way to practice. You know, and I would recommend, you know, don't take yourself too serious. You know, just you got to have fun with this. It's supposed to be. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. Okay, I do it because I think I have stuff to share. I feel like I have knowledge. I have a wealth of information, which is not completely true, but you gotta feel like you have something to share, and we all do. We all have life experiences. We all know things. We've all done stuff. And you can't take yourself too serious. You gotta be light. You gotta try to keep it light, and it's just practice. You know, talking in front of a camera is not at all comfortable thing to do. It just isn't, right? So, like I said at the beginning, I apologize to any subscribers that are expecting a sort of more do-it-yourself how-to style video. But if you found this content, you know, interesting, you know, I actually would like to do more of this style of video. I think I still have things to share that aren't DIY and how-to, right? I do have some ideas, things I'd like to do, but it's not clear to me that I'm going to get the views on a video of this style to warrant doing that. So I would appreciate, first of all, you know, of course, a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. But what's really fun is when you get comments and when you get follow-up questions. You know, when I do my DIY videos, I really enjoy it when people have follow-on questions and we have a dialogue. You go back and forth with that. That's when it's the most enjoyable. You know, so I enjoy giving back. But if you enjoy this video and you're considering subscribing, that would be great. And if you do subscribe to my channel, you'll get to see me in the next video.